Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, Zach Haller, I guess the journalist, commentator, Zach Haller wrote a piece named Tim Black Sells Out. Donna Brazile gave a platform to muddy the waters for your party consumed in scandal and promote her book too. It's literally Zach Haller saying the guy who has a show called No Sellouts sold out. So let's go through this article. Let's have this conversation. And let's see where we fall in regards to whether or not we believe Zach makes this case that Tim Black sold out. I know of Tim Black, so let's put our biases on the table. I don't feel I have a bias for anybody in the story. In fact, the bias would probably be the opposite. I worked with Tim Black for a few shows. I would be on the shows on Wednesdays. Not wanting any criticism of himself, apparently, he flips out when I said that his defense of Susan Sarandon was tepid. He didn't like the word tepid. He went on Sam Seder. He trifled with Sam Seder. And I keep saying, stop trifling with Sam Seder. Sam Seder is not to be trifled with in this way. You better have a very specific case if you're going to get Sam Seder. So long story short, anybody can look at that interview. You can come to your conclusions about what took place in the interview. I still say don't trifle with Sam Seder. Now, that being said, get up here. Okay, this is falling apart. Let's just go with Riker. That being said, it fell apart after that. He didn't necessarily like, the tepid comment. So long story short, so I don't think I have any allegiances here. We have not beefing or anything like that. It was perfectly okay. It's his show. If he doesn't want me on the show, he doesn't want me on the show. But I went through this. I thought some of it was fair. Some of it was unfair. Some of it was absolutely true. And some of it got to the heart, I think, of the matter, even though it wasn't made the original point. It's like there's a push from some of the direction that push is kind of coloring the entirety of the story. But that being said, some of his political analysis in this, I think, is dead on. I think he's right in a lot of stuff. So let's go through the article. Let's see how we fall, and let's discuss. Let's discuss the article. I'm gonna go through it a little bit first. After I go through it, I'll bring in the audience. And by the way, guys, I don't always say this, but the super chats and everything else are appreciated. My wife brought the point to me that she was like, "You understand? People are giving super chats, and you weren't paying attention." It's not that I'm not paying attention. Sometimes I don't see the screen when it's on the other way. I will be paying more attention to that. So I just want you guys to know I appreciate all of the help that's given in this way. So let's take a look. Let me say one thing first before I go into the article. The left, I don't know if the right do this because I don't exist on the right. Well, let me say two things. There's some stories that I don't particularly care about one way or the other. Most things, I gotta be honest, I don't particularly care about one way or the other. I have no feelings about it. I somewhat float above it. I look at the stuff as mostly not real. Or at the very least, it's not all that important compared to larger issues, larger factors. I have to be honest, this is one of those, petty dramas to me. It's not all that important. That being said, I am a creature of the left. And because I'm a creature of the left, and when these stories come up, I, to some degree, have to take on these stories. Even if it's just to keep on the stories I actually really, really like to do. So I'm going to do this story. That's the first point. The second point, if you're going to make this argument that somebody is a sellout, then you need to articulate what's meant by sellout. I don't know what it means. Oh, Brahm, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. Keep telling it like it is. This channel is growing. The channel is growing. The channel is growing. I'm sometimes shocked as shit to see how many people are on my channel. Even in the live chats, it blows me away. Somebody made this point like, dude, at a certain point, your live chats are going to be too unwieldy to have live chats. We'll figure shit out. We'll work it out. But Braun, thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. You have no idea how helpful it is at this point. So So yeah. God damn it, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what it is. If you're going to call somebody a sellout, you should articulate what the term sellout means. What does it mean? What does it mean? It's like saying somebody's a feminist. What does it mean? What does it mean from your context? You're the person who's creating this particular world. Even within the world of that particular feminist thing, you're going to have different people who have different ideas about what it means, how it's interpreted. What, you know, somebody calls himself a libertarian, and then you say, okay, what does that mean? They start breaking down. You have 5 people who call themselves libertarians. They would have certain core ideas, but those people may have different interpretations of those ideas. I would say the same thing for sellout. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. That being said, he calls him a sellout. So let's look through the article and see if it fits our own personal context of what that means. And we can bang around what the term means. So let's flip over to Mr. Zach Howler. Tim Black sells out. Oh, man. I don't know why I find this funny. I'm sorry. I saw this. Like, I read this entire article. This article is long, so I'm not going to go through the entire article, just pieces. And I couldn't stop laughing. I thought it was funny for only a few counts. On the parts where he's just going from the politics, he's prescient. He's right. He's right. I agree with him. Full-throated agree with him when he's talking about purely basic politics and what the Democratic Party seems to have hit on in regards to their strategy of dealing with people who've left their party. When he gets into sellout, that becomes sketchier. That becomes a harder case to make because the case becomes purely this contextual thing. What does it mean? It's like saying somebody, you know, somebody's saying something that's sexist. Well, it depends on the person who's looking at it. Somebody else may be overly sensitive to that. Somebody else may be perfectly rational. Somebody else may be overly the other direction, meaning they say a bunch of sexist shit and don't necessarily want to own it. Some of this stuff purely becomes relative and contextual to the perspective that's looking at it. That's my point. So calling somebody a sellout, calling him a sellout in this, it becomes somewhat of a difficult hurdle to make. So let's go through it. But I thought it was funny. I thought it was like, Jesus Christ, he's sticking a knife in him. Why is he putting a knife into black like this? On Monday, December 18th, disgraced former interim DNC chair Donna Brazile was a guest on the Tim Black Show to promote her new book, Hacks, the inside story of the Democratic break-ins and breakdowns that put Democrat Donald Trump into the White House. Brazile's book shines new light on the covert arrangement the Democratic Party orchestrated to fix its 2016 primary for Hillary Clinton before a single American voted. The interview coincided with the news of a complaint filed by the FEC blasting the Clinton campaign for using money laundering scheme to manipulate the state party resources, circumvent donation limits, and illegally funnel $84 million from the DNC through state chapters back into Hillary Clinton's hands. That is completely true, by the way. And I brought this point up myself. If there are campaign donations, meaning there are certain amounts that a candidate can take, I think it's like $2,300. But there's certain amounts that you can give to the state parties and the party apparatuses and stuff like that. So I think it takes up to like $350,000 or near $350,000. If all of the money that the states are taking in for the parties are being aggregated and funneled back to the candidate, then effectively you don't have a $2,300 amount that the person is getting. That person is getting millions, meaning that person can get thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars from individual contributors, because those people, for the most part, since the money is not necessarily going to the states, the money is going to the states, but the money is going back to the candidate. The states are not keeping that money. Well, the system wasn't meant that way. I mean, the whole point in the person not being able to collect huge amounts of cash is because you don't want to be able to bribe your politicians, even though we allow open bribery of our politicians. You can't bribe them in that specific particular way. What does it mean when somebody gives a huge amount of cash and that cash is funneled directly to the person? Certainly that an argument can be made that you're circumventing campaign donations. I mean, the party apparatus is purely there to suit your whims. It's almost as if the party becomes just an arm of the Hillary Clinton campaign. So yeah, he's right. Let's keep going. Let's see. What's more is the insight into the shifting shape of the Democrats' media apparatus that Donna Brazile's appearance on TBTV offers. Black, a longtime YouTuber and newcomer to politics, granted Brazile an unchecked setting to present hacks to alternative media for the first time. The result was a 79-minute expose of the raw vapidity of the Democratic Party in shambles, and a cringeworthy display of Black's eagerness to please the power structure he once rejected. So let me say this. The writing in this is actually quite good. Not talking about the content, the way you wrote it. I found myself, sometimes I'm looking at like a person on TV and I'm like, wow, her dress is amazing, or those heels are fucking awesome, like just a fashion thing. But I feel the same way about writing. I consider all this stuff to some degree art. He wrote this extraordinarily well. Content, well, we can talk about the content, but the writing on it is decent. Let's keep going. My point is, I like this line. The raw vapidity. I love it. I love that. And yes, that interview was difficult to watch. Not fully because of Tim Black. It was just difficult to listen to that woman spew that stuff. By now, it's well known that the Clinton campaign and Democrats instructed American media that Clinton would be granted the nomination regardless of how Americans would vote in the 2016 primary. This was exposed in a Pied Piper memo that surfaced in WikiLeaks' release of the campaign manager John Podesta emails. The memo effectively serves Clinton and her associates as an enhanced code of silence to protect the guilty parties corrupting the American government more so than their existing networks already do. Dutifully and behind closed doors, the media began an ongoing effort to muddy the waters to protect Clinton from scrutiny of her extensive and ongoing unethical criminal misconduct through the staged primary. In addition to the billions of free airtime the strategy handed to Trump, it resulted in a Bernie blackout that would downplay and dismiss Sanders, the Sanders campaign, and the voices of his supporters, too. And as did my own, Black's popularity grew as citizen journalists were tasked with scrutinizing the Democrats in truthful way, with mainstream media was not. Any way the mainstream media was not. Originally supported by leftist diehard H.A. Goodman on the weekly program No Sellouts, Black quickly became a fixture in left-leaning alternative media, appreciated for his candor and his willingness to speak truth to power. Let's see. This is him essentially saying, this is the start of all this. Let's get into the meat of it. Sadly, Black's critiques of TYT's slimy posturing on fraud lawsuit and hearings of April was the last glimpse of Black on the right side of history. Shortly after their spat, and without an apology from Sheridan, early on he said disgraced, he called them disgraced. Black appeared at the 2017 People's Summit in Chicago, Illinois. The event gave Americans a first look at how Democrats were rebranding in Sanders' image following Clinton's loss, and in light of Clinton's media administration of David Brock's newfound loyalty pledge to Sanders' Democrats. Of course, since Sanders flip-flopped to Team Clinton, his credibility was gone. His shilling for the party of war would grow more indefensible by the day. A reinvented media front poised to serve Democrats in the Trump era was openly named at the summit. Fresh into programming, insufferable Sanders minion. Insufferable Sanders minion Winnie Wong contended that attendees should see TYT, The Guardian, The Intercept, and Real News as a confederation of media entities that challenges state power, despite the public's awareness that these and other outlets had just last year coordinated privately with Clinton campaign to successfully assert the state's power in the 2016 primary. Yeah, I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. So you may say TYT, you may say they have Justice Democrats and these guys are working with Democrats and everything else. Real News didn't coordinate with the Hillary Clinton campaign. I have no idea where you get that from. I see no links to anything that's showing that. I see a link that's on Real News that goes to something about premiere of Nina Turner show with Bernie Sanders. So I see. Yeah, but that's a leap. That's a massive leap. You're making this argument that Real News is somehow working with the Democratic Party just because they have Nina Turner on the Real News. The fuck? That's a massive leap. That was a massive leap. Same thing with The Intercept. I don't understand why you think The Intercept and The Guardian are... that these and other just last year coordinated privately with the Clinton campaign. I don't know where you're getting that from. How's The Guardian and Intercept coordinated with the Clinton campaign? What am I missing here? The internet will sell NSA documents that have altered the course of the Syrian war. That's the link that I'm seeing. I don't see any of these links that name this, that nail this down. What I'm seeing here is an assertion. Okay, you can have a go at TYT. Fair enough. These guys were on the Hillary bandwagon. But The Guardian, The Intercept, and The Real News. I can't speak for The Intercept or The Guardian. I can speak for Real News. I'm seriously doubtful of that one. I would say show it. That's something you're going to have to prove to me. In fact, you should prove all this. But I need to understand the context to which you're adding Real News to this mix. That's my point. That's my point. All right. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. At the summit, TYT broadcast a video of Sanders-clad Sheridan insincerely apologizing to Black for his unhinged April diatribe. Yeah, this is getting into like lefty media stuff. So there was a diatribe. There was this thing where Jordan comes out and randomly, out the blue, attacks Tim Black and H.A. Goodman. Just randomly, just, you know, it's like eating your Cheerios and you fucking, I need to attack Tim Black and H.A. Goodman. And of course, this causes kind of big uproar. But ultimately, Jordan and Tim apparently buried the hatchet. They had their say, and this is what he's talking about. They shook hands and it was kumbaya. The handshake that ensued would be both an omen of Black's welcome to the Democrats' media confederation and a symbol of the establishment pivot towards the independent media rising in 2016's Bernie blackout. That's true. He's right. Well, kind of. This part. At the summit, TYT broadcasts a video of Sanders-clad Jordan Sheridan insincerely apologizing to Black for this unhinged April diatribe. The handshake that ensued will be both an omen of Black's welcome to Democrats' media confederation and a symbol of the establishment's pivot towards independent media rising since 2016 Bernie's blackout. This part, I mean, come on. This is acting as if there's some kind of fate in him touching, you know, shaking hands with Jordan and Barry Hatchet is somehow a welcome. But that being said, this part, yes, he's right. That part, he's right. The establishment's pivot towards independent media rising since the 2016 blackout. You know, Nomika Kans is trying to rehabilitate Donna Brazile. And seeing her do a video the entire time, like rehabilitating that woman as if this woman are her buddies. She's like, I got a call from Donna Brazile on my cell phone. What, you got a text or something? Like, I've been texting with Donna Brazile. Oh, I'm an insider. I'm an insider. It's awesome. I'm an insider. It's awesome. Donna Brazile is fucking awesome. I understand you believe that. This woman has been in the Democratic Party for like 40 years. And you're acting as if each and everything that's being said to you is somehow true. That she's somehow a lefty all of a sudden. TYT, same thing. Like this rehabilitation of the Democratic Party. I don't understand why you guys are believing these things. Now, that being said, I understand you're trying to get people in the party because you have people who are running and you want those people to be voted for. So I understand it. Just not call yourself a media network if you're functioning as an arm of the party in this way. That being said, the pivot is true. Donna Brazile is not on Tim Black because she thinks Tim Black is sexy and she wants to get it on with Tim Black. It's the audience. It's the audience. They've lost millions of people. They understand that people under a certain age range they're not watching MSNBC, CNN, and NBC. Those are not networks they're watching. These people are online. They also realize there's an independent media community out there that they want to get their fingers into. How do you get your fingers in the independent media? Particularly a lefty independent media that has lost trust with your party and no longer supports your interests. I would say one way to do is have Joe Manchin be on TYT. Whether those people think Joe Manchin is detestable or not, at the very least, those people will see and hear Joe Manchin. Getting Donna Brazile on TYT, getting Donna Brazile on Tim Black, having Donna Brazile to be real debilitated by elements of the TYT party, of TYT broadcasting thing. That's how you reach into the left. That's how you get your fingers into these other avenues that have stopped trusting your particular party and no longer represent your party. So he's right. They wouldn't be on Tim Black if it wasn't because of what Tim Black could offer them. This is transactional. My issue with this is any person who's doing a show, it doesn't matter who it is, and Donna Brazile, particularly if it's a lefty show, and Donna Brazile says, hey, can I come on your show to talk about my book? The answer is always going to be yes. It's Donna Brazile. You have somebody who's part of the political apparatus. She may be disgraced. She may be coming on the show and is going to say a lot of crazy out there stuff with regards to backing up her party, sheepdogging. But that's to be expected. And the role of the person who's doing the interview is not let her get away with it. Meaning both people are going into the interview with things they want to accomplish. Her case, she wants to make a case that the Democratic Party is not all that bad, that people should be sheepdogged back into the party, and that ultimately what you guys think, the cheating and everything else, let's just move forward. Let's not pay attention to anything that took place in the past. No, we don't need to have an autopsy and all that good stuff. We just need to move forward. There are rats in this house. We need to get a new tent. Black's part in this is to essentially ask the questions and take a position that his audience would take. Meaning, the questions that you're asking are somewhat skeptical and critical. And this idea of her slipping, sliding, everything else, the job of an interviewer is to not let her do that. You know she's going to do that when she comes onto the show. That's her job to do that, if that makes sense. Her job is a sheepdog. She's a Democrat. She's a Democratic functionary. I don't care what she wrote a book about. Yeah, she's hawking a book, but she's also a Democrat. That's her job. She's been sheepdogging everywhere I've seen her. She's been sheepdogging like nobody's business. She's a loyal soldier. So that's her job. You know she's going to do it when she gets on the show. It's the job of an interviewer to not let her do that. Her coming onto the show is not evidence of sellout. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like the very act of you bringing her onto the show. It's not good or bad. It's not anything. That's what I'm getting at. This idea that just because she wants to do that, you bring it onto her show is somehow a bad thing. That's not really true. I'm not saying that that's the crux of the argument in this. Like, I don't think he's making this case that he's a sellout because he allowed her on the show. But sometimes it does come across as if that is the case that's being made. I don't think that's that simplistic. I think it's a little bit more to it. So let's be fair to Zach. And let's get more to the meat of it. But I do think this is true, though. I do think that part is true. The whole point of the whole thing is to get people accustomed to those particular Democrats and try to reach their fingers into the lefty media. Let's see. This is... And again, this was a good question by Zach, too. Black will land his first high-profile interview thereafter, following the announcement that Nina Turner, a longtime Clinton crony and Brock operative, will replace Jeff Weaver as president of Sanders. Dark Money, Our Revolution. In it, Black did not press Turner as the wider group would accept the same dark money that Sanders vehemently condemned on the campaign trail. It remains to be seen how much more water Black would carry for the indefensible Democratic Party and its deeply corrupt leadership. Again, you gotta... Let me say it this way. There's never going to be a situation where you ask all the questions that somebody wants to ask. I have to be honest, that's actually a good question. That's a fair question. Are you guys accepting dark money? And if so, why are you accepting dark money when Sanders did not want to accept dark money and was completely against it? That's what I'm getting at is, does failing to ask a particular question means that you're carrying water? It doesn't just mean you just didn't ask the question. Like, I guess my issue with this is Zach early on noted that Tim Black was new to this. He said he's somewhat new to this, he's new to the political part, and he's been asking questions and so forth. He's been having interviews and just growing his membership. Fair enough. If you grant that he's somewhat new to this, like, it's like you're sticking a knife in him as if you're saying he's supposed to know all this stuff right off the bat. Like he's supposed to ask all these questions and know to ask all these questions off the bat. You could say that he didn't necessarily live up or take a posture in an interview that you yourself would have taken in an interview. But does that mean that he's carrying water if he's not taking the specific posture that you yourself think? Because that's the question. Yeah, I guess that's the question. There are plenty of interviews. I give you an example. Paul J has an interview with Nina Turner. And as he's having his interview, I'm asking him, I'm like, wait a minute. The question to ask her is, if they don't do this, are you still going to stay with the party? it doesn't make me dislike Paul Jay, nor does it make me think that Paul Jay is somehow a tool of the quote-unquote establishment. If Paul Jay doesn't ask that particular question, Paul Jay may have not have thought of that question. I mean, shit, man, you're asking people to be fucking perfect in interviews. Let's keep going. Oh, wow. Blacks' fleeting morality would decline further as Brock's donor network that includes warlord George Soros forked out to protect Democratic Party interests under Trump. A leaked memo revealed that these Clinton media hold over intentions and strategies to discredit and ultimately impeach the president. That an impeachment is not possible did not matter, given the gravity of their scandals. The Democrats would need to reinvent, correct the record, the shady apparatus that protected Clinton during the election. Let's keep going. He's going after a few people on this. He's sticking a knife in people, but this is his knife. Let him do it. With Clinton in office, Clinton trolls will continue to silence dissent, protecting Clinton and broad deep state agenda, and support the media apparatchik in place, frantically downplaying Clinton's crimes before Trump makes good on his promise to lock her up. Beyond TYT, The Intercept, The Guardian, The Real News Network, Democrats' media efforts to quote-unquote resist, obstruct Trump extended into upstarts, Progressive Army, Impact, through overlapped and overt messaging and personalities, Ben Dixon and Anola Chenga. While blacks sought to maintain an anti-establishment roots and integration in it. All right, so let me talk about what he's talking about here. At least what I think he's talking about. All right, yeah, because this one is just long, so I need to paraphrase some of this. Benjamin Dixon. All right, so Caitlin Johnston wrote a piece, and that piece was saying people should coordinate with the right in cases where you agree with the right. If it's something that the right is saying that you agree with, it is perfectly okay to coordinate with the right on that. Meaning, if somebody is anti-war, then yes, I'm also anti-war. We can work on causes that are anti-war, that type of stuff. There were elements of the left who were very sensitive about that stuff, picked out something that was in an article and blew it out of proportion, focusing purely on what she said as opposed to the content of what she said. That created this kind of uproar within certain elements of what's considered the left. Zach is looking at this from the standpoint of these people are Democratic functionaries because these people took this position, as opposed to these people took this position because these people were bothered by this particular thing. It's not that they were tools of Democrats. At least I don't think it is. I got to be honest. I don't watch Ben Dixon. I only know of Noah through this particular issue. I don't think they're tools of resist. I mean, or tools of the Democratic establishment. In this case, they may be, they may not be, but I don't necessarily think this issue is one of the things that gets across. People will disagree with you on stuff. It's not. Put it this way, I don't like this thing of, I disagree with you, so you're not part of our team, or you're not part of this club, as if this particular individual is the definitive left and everybody else is relative to that particular individual. Everything that I do, by definition, is fucking awesome because, you know, I'm fucking awesome. Yeah, that's not true. People would disagree with you, and just because people disagree with you don't necessarily mean they're tools of something else. Let's keep going. Let's see. And what's this? All right, so I'm going to show this part. Well, better yet, let me show a different part. Look, at the end of the day, what I think took place was an argument that these two got into. And I have to be honest, I think that's the crux of all of this. So let's take a look at this real quick. This is an episode of Crosstalk that both of these guys were on. I'm not going to let it go the entire time. I just want the first part to play.
Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. There was a time when Hollywood and the entertainment business used to do exactly that, entertain us. Today, there's a very different partisan reality. Now they assume their mission is to educate us and demand political conformity. With the country evenly split, is this a losing proposition? cross-talking Hollywood and politics. I'm joined by my guest, Wendy Osifo in New York. She is a liberal commentator as well as a race and culture researcher at Johns Hopkins University. In Washington, we have Tim Black. He is a political analyst, commentator, and host of The Tim Black Show. And in Seattle, we cross to Zach Haller. He is a writer, activist, and progressive YouTuber. All right, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Zach, I'm going to go to you first in Seattle because you got up earliest for this program, and I really very much appreciate it. You know, we're calling this program, I'm calling this program Hollywood Propaganda, but as we were getting all set up to do this recording, what crossed my mind is that it should be called dog whistle, because this is what people are using all of the time. Every time Trump opens his mouth, it's a dog whistle. Every time a conservative says something, it's a dog whistle. But I would turn it on its head. I would say the Emmys, the Oscars, the CNN, MSNBC, ESPN, all of they're the dog whistles, okay? Anytime somebody says something they disagree with, then they pack on, they pile on. And this is what really, really bothers me. Your reaction, Zach, in Seattle.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, everyone is just so sick of this moralizing that's coming from the establishment. I mean, it was a losing strategy for the Democrats in 2016, trying to tell us how to vote, trying to tell us what to think. And here, the Democratic Party, the establishment, and the Hollywood entities that support them are continuing to just moralize and tell us what to think and what to do instead of providing us with information so we can make our own thoughts and decisions on our own. And, you know, everyone's just sick of it. It's just the same fatigue of the establishment and the corporate duopoly that's just keeping, you know, the public in mindless discourse instead of, you know, them actually getting involved to change the government and make the reform that we need to get out of the horrible patterns of injustice that we're in now.
Okay, Wendy, let me go to you because I'm sure you're going to disagree, and I'm very happy that you're on this program. Well, what the news outlets and organizations that I mentioned, you know, they always say that they believe in diversity, but I don't see the diversity. It's very monotone for me, and it's not very deep, actually, as well. And I find it really difficult because they seem to take on some kind of moral superiority, and then the deplorables, the rest of us. And I think that's it's very unhealthy when we have a situation like this. Go ahead, Wendy, in New York.
I find it interesting that we often talk about Hollywood as if it's just this subsect of Democrats, when that's not the case. There are conservatives who also reside in Hollywood. We have Kid Rock, who currently right now is, you know, running for office. And then we also have someone like Scott Baio. So, you know, as Americans, we have the ability, and as any citizen really, you have the ability to say what side of the political aisle you are on, and you should not be penalized for it. And if it just so happens that Hollywood happens to be more so left-leaning than, let's say, those individuals who are in the country music sector, then so be it. That is their right. We should not sit here and talk down on people who are in Hollywood because we feel as though they lean to the
Wendy,
left. There's no propaganda here.
But don't you think they talk down to the heartland, to the middle of the country? I mean, I agree. Everyone has freedom of speech. I agree with you, okay? No. But what I see coming out of the mainstream media, the corporate media, and Hollywood, and the music business, and now it's invading sports, okay? Let me go to Tim here. Again, freedom of speech, we all respect, but that speech that comes out of those news organizations and other organizations, very monotone, and I'm sorry, it's very condescending all the time. If you disagree. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Look, I can't believe Wendy's up here defending, you know, these multi-liberals, these big studio houses in Hollywood. We know that these houses are run by liberals, and they control the groupthink. They control the groupthink. This is what they do. And if you're in Hollywood, you have to contend with that. You have to alter your message and make sure it fits in with their agenda, which is to push forth a liberal propaganda to the masses. Zach is correct. Wendy's tripping, and I believe that most people in Hollywood would agree with me. Actors, directors, they have to fall into line in order to adapt, in order to get work in Hollywood. It's reality.
Zach, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because everyone is still kind of recovering from not only the Great Fleecing, in which Obama transferred more wealth to the 1% than any American president in history. That's still hitting Americans really hard, and everyone's recovering from that. But also in the 2016 election, we saw an unprecedented conglomeration of the mainstream media, including the Hollywood and the Hollywood elites that were, you know, sitting talking with Hillary Clinton at her private fundraisers. They were talking down on the entire working class.
I don't need to show all of that. These guys were buddies at one point. And look, there's two things. It's that video is funny for a few counts. It's like somebody saying, well, I went to eat lunch one day, and as I was eating lunch, oh yeah, Obama did so and so. It's supposed to be about Hollywood propaganda. He's bringing up Obama and everything. It's like just a form for a hit piece. Just add Hollywood and say Hollywood to make sure everything else is okay. It's just funny. Crosstalk is crosstalk. I want to make sure though that it's understood that this is a hit piece, but initially these guys were friends. One of the things in the article that's far too long to read, but it's a back and forth between the two. Zach put out, what I just said. He essentially, after one of the shows, after one of these things, he wanted to get on Tim Black's show. Again, they were friends, they were cordial with one another. Tim Black said, yes, you can come on the show. At some point, however, Tim Black made the point, look, you're beefing with so-and-so, and I want you guys to have a conversation about it on the show. I want you guys to talk about it. I want you guys to hash it out. So this is not necessarily going to be a great show for you. I don't want to blindside you. Zach makes the point, I'm not talking to anybody, and I have no interest in talking about what you're talking about. Ultimately, I want to have a conversation about crosstalk. I want to have a conversation about what these guys are planning. I want to talk about the Democratic establishment. That's what I want to talk about on the show. I'm not trying to settle in on my gripes. It's not your responsibility to have me settle my gripes. Your dad is like, I want you guys to come on to the show and have this conversation. Well, that's not what I want. That's not my interest. I have no interest in doing that. I want to talk about the show. And I have to be honest, on that point, I agree with him. But why is Tim Black trying to get somebody to settle a grievance in this way? But that being said, it is Tim Black's show. Like, if Tim Black is like, I don't want you on my show for these particular reasons, it's Tim Black's show. Tim Black can do whatever he wants with his show. It just seems like a lot of this is coming from bad feelings dealing with that. This thing of, it's funny. I agree with Zach and disagree with him. I agree with him that if I don't want to have a conversation with somebody, I'm not going to have a conversation. You don't have to force me or try to push me to have a conversation using your show as leverage to do so. By the same token, it is his show. He can say, well, if you don't want to come on my show, or if you don't want to have this conversation, then I don't want you on my show. It's his show. Do whatever he wants. It just seems that that's where a lot of this comes from. And so there's a large section on that, but I want to jump into when it gets into the interview itself, because that's a lot of wood to chop to get down to the point of the interview. All right, so let's flip again. While I may not be welcome on Black's show, well, it's certainly not now, Donna Brazile certainly is. A long-term fixture of the Democratic Party, Brazile's high-profile entry to the 2016 election scandal followed WikiLeaks' release of Podesta's emails prior to Clinton's nomination at the convention. And look, I don't make this up out of whole cloth. The reason why I say I think it has more to do with that is because that had nothing to do with this article. Nothing. Zero. Like, this entire article, that entire section of the article could have been left out, and you still would have had the exact same context of the article. It stands out. That's all I'm saying. It's not. I understand that the point of the article is established that Tim Black is a sellout. You've established that Tim Black may be a bit of a dick, but a sellout, slightly different. I don't know what it was supposed to establish that he didn't have on the show. It stands out. That's all I'm saying. It's a sore thumb in the article. It stands out so abruptly because it has nothing to do with the rest of the article. I didn't get along with him in this particular context, and I thought this was somewhat of a dick move. So I'm adding this into the article that established that he was a sellout. Him being a dick to you is not indicative of him being a sellout. It's only indicative of him being a bit of a dick. Those are different things. That's all I'm saying. The premise and the thesis of the article is Tim Black is a sellout. That has nothing to do with the thesis. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. When I made the point that I think that has more to do with the article than anything else, that's what I'm getting at. So, but this is the meat of it. While I might not be welcome on the Tim Black show, Donna Brazile certainly is. I read that part. Not before long, Brazile will be fired from CNN following revelation she was secretly passing debate questions to Clinton ahead of time. To longtime American political observers, seeing Brazil's loyalty to Clinton would be neither new nor surprising. Brazile openly stated at a 2013 interview that if if Clinton ran for president, there would be a coordination of her. Speaking to the Washington Post in 2014, Brazile even professed a cavalier willingness to disregard the impartiality clause of the Democratic Party chapter. I did not know this. And this is fucking awesome that Zach has this in his article. Technically, I'm neutral, but neutrality is something that gets you in trouble because you ever notice someone who stands on the white line in the middle of the road. They get run over, and I don't want to get run over. So I'm not neutral. I have to tell people that I'm neutral, but I'm ready for Hillary. I'm ready for Hillary. I imagine she gets really intense at the very end of it. I'm ready for Hillary. I'm ready for Hillary. It may be Brazile's willingness to cheat or her ability to get away with it. That is the backbone of her loyalty to the party like-minded leadership. WikiLeaks' October release revealed Brazile passed more than just debate questions to Clinton. Brazile also forwarded a January 2016 planning email obtained from the Sanders campaign as a FYI. Clinton spokesperson Adrian Elrod responded, "Thank you for the heads up on this, Donna." Contrary to the norms of professionalism, an organization as amoral as the Democratic Party was sooner to promote Brazile than to banish her after repeated instances of unethical practices and failed leadership. The party continues to pay her handsomely. All right, let's go to this one. Now she had a book to sell. After Hack's release, Brazile sat with TYT's Lamika Kantz to wax incoherent as if uncovering hard evidence proving a candidate under FBI investigation rigged a primary were casual occurrences. Kantz herself opened the lines with the party, so her interview was a fine sit-down, unremarkable aside from being a dreadful and unmitigated as expected. Black's interview, though, had a different, though still painful, dynamic. At the outset of the interview, Black rushes to admit that he admires Brazile, eliminating any hope for a fair or balanced showing. Later, Brazile confesses her interest in ingratiating into Black's network and repeatedly panders to his audience. The reality that Brazile's party undermined democracy has been widely reported in independent media, so certainly very few in Black's audience will be assuaged by Brazile's paltry consolations. Brazile's spot with Black played out like an unbearable Democratic Party infomercial, glossing over virtually every scandal currently enveloping Brazile's friends: Hillary and Bill Clinton, Jane and Bernie Sanders, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. Here, Brazile is tasked with a fool's errand, asking for a second chance for millions of Americans her party cheated just last year. I think some of that is right. I do think that the only reason Brazile is on that network is because Brazile is trying to ingratiate herself to the left. That's the only reason I can see that Brazile will be on that left network. I don't understand people who act like this is purely a thing of politics and that Brazile's politics have all of a sudden just changed. Brazile was a loyal soldier, and in being a loyal soldier, she behaved as if a loyal soldier. But guess what? She's still a loyal soldier. She's still a loyal soldier. She's going on these networks. Yes, the hacker book, but also part of that is the sheepdog. He's right. I disagree with him that I agree with him it was a painful interview to watch. But come on. I mean, what you're talking about are issues of style. I've never seen Tim Black go after anybody in an interview. He's asking her questions, she responded, and he pushed back on the questions that she asked. It is perfectly fair to say that maybe he should have asked questions in a more skeptical way, or maybe he should have asked questions in a different way. Those things become a little bit more subjective, so fair enough. Yeah, I just think some of this is slightly unfair. It's like you're doing an interview, there's another person sitting across from you, and you're asking that person questions. That person is obviously doesn't want to answer those questions, so you push back on the person asking questions. How often do you push back? How rough do you be with the person? And to some degree, some of those things are personal things. Like, you have different interview styles. Some of that is unfair. That's what I'm saying. At least I think some of it's unfair. That being said, could the questions have been asked in a different way? Well, that's a different question. What we're talking about, however, is sellout. And we're trying to come up with enough evidence based on this article to establish the thesis of the article. Tim Black is a sellout. That's what we're trying to come up with a thesis for. Now, up to this point, I'm just making this case that sitting with Donna Brazile in and of itself can't be considered a sellout. Anybody who's doing a talk show would do it. And it boils down to, A, what do you believe the definition of sellout is? And B, did Tim Black fill that definition based on, I guess, this interview and based on other stuff? I don't want to say it this way, but let's be extreme. Does being bad at interviewing make you a sellout? And I'm not saying Tim is bad at interviewing. I'm just trying to make a stark point. If there are questions that he didn't ask, meaning you're sitting here looking at the interview and you say to yourself, Jesus Christ, there are like 10 questions that the guy didn't ask. Does it mean that the guy is carrying water? Or does it mean that he didn't just ask those questions? Does it mean that he didn't push as hard as you yourself would have pushed if you had the opportunity to actually be sitting across from Brazile asking her questions? And does it make you a sellout if you don't ask questions in a more harsh way? This brings it back to what is the definition of sellout. So let's keep going. I'm going to sum this up at the end, so I'm not going to go too long on this, but let's keep going. I want to make this point. I mean, understand, where are we on this interview? Like, we've chopped through a lot of wood, but we're really just now getting to the gripe. We're just now getting to the gripe. The first part of it was kind of establishing, you know, this is what the Democratic Party is doing. This is what took place. This is the context of the things that are going on. But ultimately, the meat of it is right here. The interview bottoms out time and time again. Viewers who could stomach Black as a sycophantic courtier will be repeatedly appalled as he abstained from challenging Brazile as she twisted fact into fiction over and over again, failing to take an unequivocally stand on the wildly unethical issues she waded through. As Brazile invoked Martin Luther King Jr., who was targeted and likely killed by the U.S. government operations to defend herself, Black didn't flinch. While it would be impossible to itemize all the inconsistencies and broken arguments contained in Brazile's vacillating interview, the most shocking ways Brazile downplayed the Democrats' ongoing scandals are as follows. Brazile brushed off the term rigged to describe the primary fix for one candidate over the American had voted. Yeah, she did. Yes, she did. She explained that Clinton's corruption was a cancer and presented evidence of wrongdoing while maintaining that Clinton won the primary built to assure she did. Attempts from Black to bring her closer to truth were quickly shrugged off. Alarmingly, Brazile would contend that she was unfamiliar with the damning argument, that Democrats presented in the hearings on the class action lawsuit brought by revolutionary litigators Elizabeth and Jared Beck seeking damages on behalf of Sanders voters duped by the fraudulent primary. When Brazile remarked that Sanders supporters don't leave a dime behind, Black withheld any retort in defense of Sanders donors that energized the primary by donating millions, shattering fundraising records, and pouring money and energy into a broke, failing party. As concerns lingered that Clinton associates made an example of Seth Rich, Brazile weaseled out of explaining how Democrats failed to keep a key staffer out of harm's way. With viewers desperate to see accountability as to why Democrats are not helping find Rich's killer, Black remained tepid. When grilled Brazile on why Americans should believe it was Russians who beguiled the Democrats and not internal whistleblowers, as obviously suggests, Brazile insisted Americans should take CrowdStrike's analysis at face value, despite the glaring red flags associated with the shady groups. Black had no objections. Now, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. Tim Black pushed back on all those. This is what I mean. Like, when people do interviews, and me being on the side of the person who's done interviews, it's like when you're looking at the interview from outside, you have different thought processes. It's not the same. You're in the middle of an interview, you're asking questions, you have a person sitting across from you, the person says something that you think is off, and you press, and they continue to say something that you think is off. Now, the audience is looking at this interview, and the audience is similar to you in the way they're looking at things, because it is your audience. And your audience is looking for this, where sun shines down through the studio and the person rips their shirt off and, they have the scarlet letter on their chest and it's like, yes, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted, this emancipatory moment of getting across failure and corruption. That doesn't happen. Like, they went through the entire process for over a year where everybody knew what they cheated. Everybody's screaming at him, you cheated. And they spent the entire process saying that they were united, that nothing took place, And then when it finally came out, somebody from their own party, they said, we're looking forward. We're not looking back. We're looking forward. You're not going to get that emancipatory moment. That's all I'm saying. Look at the interview. You may say Black didn't push back as hard as you wanted, but he did push back. That's not fair to say he didn't push back. He asked her questions. She dodged. He went back to it and asked her again. She continued to dodge. What was he supposed to do? Now, I understand you may say, well, he should have asked her harder. He should have pushed harder. He should have... To what end? Like, do you believe that there's an end to that rabbit hole? I guarantee you that she would have another answer that would wander off into weirdness. The job of an interview is not necessarily to completely get that person to advocate. It's to show other people what this person's talking about. Donna Brazile dipped and dodged and ducked all of these issues. And Zach Howler is perfectly right here. These are issues that she, for the most part, dodged and ducked and didn't want to give straight answers to. And the Russia thing was amazing. She was like, trust us. She was like, trust us. You should trust us. With the Democratic Party, you should trust us. And even with that, Black said, well, I think it's a leak. I don't think it's a hack. Be fair, man. That's all I'm saying. Be fair. I don't like lefties hitting lefties. I don't like lefties hitting lefties. And more than not like lefties hitting lefties, there is something weird about a situation where anybody on the left establishes themselves as the definitive left. It's like, I'm fucking awesome. I'm the goddamn left. And if you're not on board with the things that I'm on board with, you're no longer the left and you're sellouts. That's what I'm asking. What does it mean? Who establishes the sellout thing? What does it mean? What does it mean? I need a definition. And once I get that definition, we can compare the definition to the reality to which we find ourselves. But that being said, one individual cannot represent what it means to be a sellout. Meaning one particular individual in and of himself can't necessarily say and justify the position that everybody else relative to me is a sellout. What the fuck does that mean? How do you do that? I want a piece of that action. Everybody else is a sellout. You sniveling bitches are sellouts if you're not towing my particular role in this. Come on. Come on. It's like, what are you talking about? Everybody's a sellout because they're not doing exactly what you want them to do. Yeah, I'm sketchy on that. He didn't ask the questions you wanted to ask. Fair enough. He wasn't tough enough that you wanted him to be tough enough with her. Okay, fair enough. Is she trying to make inroads into the left? Yes. Will she be successful with it? I don't know. Is she trying to do the same thing with TYT? Yes. Does her being on Tim Black's show just completely mean that Tim Black is carrying water for Democrats? No. No, it does not. Him, from your perspective, giving a bad interview does not a sellout make. It just means it was a bad interview. That's all that means. I personally don't think it was a bad interview. So yeah, I don't. Let's see what is Tulsi Gabbard saying. Despite Brazile's sliminess, the gravity of her party scandals is realer than ever. Hawaiian Representative Tulsi Gabbard cut to the roost in a blistering response to Brazile's claims. Let's see what Tulsi. I like Tulsi.
Earlier today, we heard from Donna Brazile that what many people had suspected for a long time has turned out to be true. The DNC secretly chose their nominee over a year before the primary elections even occurred. This shines a light on how deeply broken our campaign finance laws are and how they've weakened individual candidates while strengthening and empowering political parties and special interests. These laws essentially allowed the Clinton campaign to bypass individual campaign contribution limits by funneling millions of dollars through the DNC and state parties, taking control of the DNC in the process. Along with the recent retaliatory purge of Bernie Sanders and Keith Ellison supporters from the DNC's executive committee, this is just further evidence that the DNC needs to be completely overhauled to take our party back from the special interests of a powerful few and put it back in the hands of the people. We must bring about real campaign finance reform. We must get rid of the undemocratic system of superdelegates. We must implement open or same-day registration in Democratic primaries to actually encourage voter engagement. We must care more about people than protecting the status quo. No more games, no more retaliation, no more picking of winners and losers. We must act now to take back our party, a party that belongs to the people, and fight for a new path forward that is open, transparent, and accountable, and that strengthens our democracy.
Wow. Wow, yeah. I think I've said before, I like Tulsi. I like Tulsi Gabbard a lot. She's awesome. She's awesome. Wow. That should have been the response, by the way. That's the correct response. Zach Haller is right again. That is the correct response. We fucked up. You caught us. We did things that we shouldn't have done. We're sorry. I think there's something problematic where you've been caught red-handed, in a way you've been caught red-handed on multiple levels, whether you want to talk about just the public looking at this, living during that time, saying, oh my God, they're cheating. Or they're talking about WikiLeaks and say, oh my God, they're cheating. Whether you have the person who's in charge of the DNC at that point coming out saying, yes, you're right, we were cheating. And the rest of the party looks at this and says, we need to move on. We need to look forward, not back. We need to look forward, not back. You know who says look forward, not back? People who are guilty. People who are guilty. That's the defense of the guilty. Let's keep on. But Zach is right on that. Ultimately, the linchpin of hacks is the evidence that Brazile uncovered showing Clinton rigged the 2016 primaries before it began. Specifically, Brazile cites an agreement in place between the DNC and the Hillary Victory Fund and Hillary for America that specified that in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control the party's finances, strategy, and all the money raised. And again, Zach is completely right. He's completely right. Let's see. He's bringing up all the things that are going on. Failing to call for accountability from those responsible for rigging the 2016 primary, Black is the latest apologist to sympathize with the criminals who just last year undermined American democracy. That's strong. Clinton's media allies that allowed this fraud to occur, and particularly those who protected the guilty by downplaying these scandals, are unequivocally accessories to Clinton crimes and should be treated as such. That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. In failing to call for accountability from those responsible for the 2016 primary, Black is the latest apologist to sympathize with the criminals who last year undermined American democracy. How on earth? Explain this to me. Explain this to me. How on earth is having an interview with somebody who's somewhat of a crook and somewhat corrupt, and as you're having that interview, you're pushing back when that person is saying something that you don't agree with and you don't like. But because you didn't jump across the counter and slap the shit out of Donna Brazile, that you're somehow an apologist because you didn't slap the shit out of Donna Brazile. What? Mind-blowing. This is mind-blowing. Yes, you wrote it well. No, what you're saying makes no sense. Any interview? So you're the standard bearer for what's considered an apologist. The standard bearer. Zach Haller is now the standard bearer for this. Come on. Come on. I have no issue with either Zach, Tim, or anybody else. Like I've always said, I'm siloed in this. And I'm siloed for a reason. I don't necessarily want to have interactions in this way. I want to be siloed. I don't need to see other people's content in this way. I kind of want to have my own thoughts and ideas and everything else. And I don't necessarily want to take anybody else into account when I'm giving those thoughts and ideas. So when I say this is not to attack anybody, even though this article I think is a hit piece. I'm just kind of making this point that I understand. I look, if you want to say Tim Black gave a tepid interview with regards to Donna Brazile, okay, it's your context, it's your reality frame. You're looking at this, you have a particular point of view of these things. But can we just admit, God damn it, can we admit that none of us is the standard bearer about what's anything? Like your own context of something is your own context of something. You may have a bunch of people that agree with you. You may be the only one who's believing that particular thing, but you're not the standard bearer. It is a difficult thing to make, a difficult case to make. They say that he sympathizes with criminals who last year undermined American democracy because he didn't ask the interviews or have the interview that you yourself believe that he should have had. That's all I'm getting at. That's all I'm getting at. That's That's immensely strong. Black is the latest apologist. I've called people apologists, but when they're trying to, reestablish the Democratic Party, or when they're acting as if this stuff is not that big of a deal. I've never heard Tim Black take that position. Never. The only thing that I can go by is the interview. That's the only thing that seems that you're dredging up in order to make this case. If you want to say his interview was somewhat tepid, fair enough. Fair enough. If you want to say he should have asked different questions, fair enough. If you want to say he's a bad interviewer, fair enough. But you're adding dark motives to the mix. That's what I'm getting at. What took place in the interview didn't require dark motives in the least. And I would argue there's a body of work that goes against this idea of dark motives. Unless you think he has a case of Trump derangement syndrome, where he just kind of came down with it one night. It was like, oh, I need Donald Trump, so I need to work with the Democrats. I don't know if that took place. I don't know if that took place. Let's say from your perspective that this is just a bad interview. Let's say it's a horrible interview. Let's say Tim Black didn't ask anything that you would have asked. Does that, by definition, means that he's an apologist for the Democratic Party, and that he's working with Donna Brazile to sheepdog people into the Democratic Party? What you're talking about requires a certain amount of motive associated with it. I'm saying, under the worst case scenario, that I don't believe is a worst case scenario, but I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. The worst case scenario, you're saying he's not incompetent, he's not a bad interviewer, he didn't just miss certain questions, that he has essentially certain dark motives where he is trying to be an apologist for the Democratic Party and is working with Donna Brazile to sheepdog people into the party. I don't know where that's coming from. That's my issue with this. Everything that's taken place in no way requires dark motives. Your issue or your run-in with Tim could have just been being a dick. That doesn't necessarily mean that this was somehow related to being a sellout. I don't know how it relates to him being a sellout. The Donna Brazile thing, you may say, I wish he would have been more aggressive with Donna Brazile. Fair enough. You may say he should have been more skeptical of Donna Brazile. Fair enough. You could say there's certain questions that he should have used to impeach her testimony. Fair enough. You could say that he should have stuck to a particular point longer. Fair enough. I give you all those things. I give you all those things. All those things, however, fall into this issue of a matter of skill or lack thereof. You're going beyond this idea of lack of skill, going beyond this idea of potential incompetence, going beyond this idea of bad questions. You're going into, he's co-opted, he is a sheepdog, he is a complete sellout. And the interview is somehow indicative of him being a sellout. And I'm saying, I have no earthly idea where you get that from. And reading this article, as well written as it is, in no way tells me. That's what I'm saying. That's precisely what I'm saying. I don't like this idea of sellout thing. It's one thing if you make your case, but what this seems to really boils down to is, I am Zach Haller. I make the determination of what's considered the left. And if I disagree with what you're doing, I'm going to say that you're not the left and that you're co-opted. Then you get into this question of what does it mean to be the left? What does it mean to be a sellout? I don't have any of those things answered in this particular document. I hear the word sellout, and then I see Tim Black associated with it. Okay, but Tim Black is not the definition of what a sellout is. You have to have a definition of what the sellout. You can't say this particular person is emblematic of a sellout. That doesn't tell me anything. What does it mean to be a sellout? And I don't understand how this attachment is being made in this way with Donna Brazile's interview. I just don't know what it's indicative of. I don't know. I don't see the dark motives. I don't see anything in this piece that gets across those dark motives. Let me say one last thing before I open this up. I understand that in regards to everything that took place, the left is overly sensitive about stuff that goes on. I get it. I get it being somewhat sensitive, being cynical and all this. I get it. I get it. It's like people reacting in a particular way after being hurt. It's like, oh, I've been hurt in relationships before, so every little thing also causes this kind of allergic reaction. But, are you telling me that if I look back at 10 prior Tim Black interviews, not this interview, 10 interviews that Tim Black has done, that those interviews will be fundamentally different than this one, him with Donna Brazile? And I strongly suspect that answer would be, it would be the same interview. You're talking about issues of style. Tim Black gave a particular interview. I don't even think it was a bad interview. The point of the interview is not to browbeat the person you're interviewing. What is it that you're here to say in this interview? I'm going to make my points, you're going to make your points, and we're going to leave them for the audience to make their choice. The goal of the interview is not to beat the shit out of Donna Brazile. Like, I think this article is massively unfair. I think it's massively unfair. The political acumen in the article is right. Meaning what Zach is saying from a political context of, yes, this is what they're trying to do. This is the purpose of these interactions with the left. That's the only reason. There's no other reason for them to interact with the left in this way other than to co-opt and to sheepdog people into their establishment. It's, you know, advertisement. So yes, he's right. Absolutely right. I have no issue, argument, or anything else on that particular point. He is right. But that's not the thesis of the argument. Meaning the hypothesis of the argument. It's Tim Black is a sellout. It's fucking written right there in the moniker. So having elements in the article that's right. Okay, those elements are right. It's when you get into the dark motives of the individual. And it's like, okay, if that person's dark motives, fair enough. Let's look at it. Let's look at the evidence. And the evidence that's used to get across the dark motives is an interview. And the interview is done in the exact same way that he's done his other interviews. It's like, come on. Come on. The one piece that's in the article that stands out more overt than anything else has to do with the back and forth that you guys had related to him coming on your show or you coming on the show. It feels like, and I could be wrong, I could be totally wrong. It feels, you know, deep in there, that this is more to do about that than it has to do about the other stuff. I'm pissed off because you didn't let me on your show. You wanted me to have this conversation with this person. I didn't want to have this conversation with this person, so now I'm somewhat pissed off at you and I'm writing this hit piece because I didn't like what took place in regards to you in the interview with Donna Brazile. I thought you should have been rougher and tougher with her. But what is the impetus to that? If the other thing never took place, meaning if the interview thing or you coming on to the show, if that never took place, that it wasn't part of the mix, would you still have written this article? And would this article have been written with this particular tenor of this guy is a sheepdog, this guy is not the left, this guy is etc., 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 etc.? You've gone after like 5 or 6 people in this article. Ben Dixon and Noah, Tim Black. You like HA, so I guess that's good. But you've been dissing all of these people. And you yourself has become the definitive factor of what's the left. I think that's somewhat problematic, and I think it's just flat, fat, false. And come on. You're making that determination. It's like, shit, man. I'm not against this idea of saying, you know, this is... And I think I've even said it myself. The Democrats aren't the left in this country and that type of stuff. But if I gave you guys a test, if I put you in separate rooms, and if I gave you and Tim a test, I would wager that the overwhelming majority of the answers on that test will come back to be exactly the same. Or pretty damn close. Well, Chris Hedges has a term, the, what does he call it? A minor difference. I can't think of the name. He has a term for it, but it's not the misogyny. It's the arrogance of minor distinction or something like that. It's like these distinctions are so minor. This is so minor. You guys are in the same sandbox. Everybody considers you in the same sandbox. Jeffrey Pearson, who defines what the left is? Yeah, that's my point. Who defines what the left is? Who's the definitive left? Who's the definitive left? Look, if you want to say that we disagree on XYZ, fair enough. Fair enough. But at which point does the disagreement says, you're off the boat? You're off the boat. And can't Tim Black turn around and say, well, you're not the left. Shit, telling me I'm not the left. You're not on the left. You're a sellout. It's like, come on. This gets stupid at a certain point. This gets stupid at a certain point. These fucking lefties hitting lefties. Look, the article is well written. There are aspects of the article that I think he's right on. I went through those aspects that I think he's right on. But the main question in the article is Tim Black a sellout? A, I still don't know what sellout means. And B, I don't necessarily think an interview with Donna Brazile is indicative of anything. Particularly not the person being a sellout just because he's doing an interview with Donna Brazile. He didn't ask the questions that Zach Haller himself approved Tim Black asking. So... Bob Ramirez said, the truth comes out. Jamal treasures his autographed copy of Donna Brazile's book that Tim gave him. Not so much. I would have asked different questions. I would have been more skeptical. But that's me. That's me. Like, I guess I'm trying to make this point that just because I would have did something different doesn't necessarily mean that the other person is a sellout. That has more to it than that. There's more to it than just the person not necessarily doing something that you yourself wanted that person to do. That's all I mean. That's all I mean. And again, I have no drama with any of these guys. I think Zach Haller is a fucking awesome writer. He loses me with stuff like this. He loses me with stuff like this. It's like, shit, man. Let's see. Mike the Russian bot. Yeah, there's a little real difference. The arguments are bigger and more vicious. Yeah, between other big groups. Like, we're not talking about an argument between big groups. We're talking about intramural arguments between other lefties. It's like, you believe in this? Yes, I believe in this. Okay. What is one tiny distinction that we can find that we disagree with? I like cheese on my sandwich. No, I'm not a fucking lefty. You're not a lefty. Lefties don't like cheese on their sandwich. You're off the boat, buddy. It's like, come on. Come on. Copter Force, a sellout. At any point you have a different set of priorities or, God forbid, belief other than radical, puritanical left. Yes. Yes, Copter Force, yes. Yes. It's like me out-lefting and saying, look, I think we need to get rid of money, and every other person who says that we should keep money is not on the boat. You guys are not the left. I'm the goddamn left. I don't want money in this process. That's a weird position to take. All of these positions are going to be relative to one another. But you're talking about positions that are so close aligned in the spectrum to which they exist, that the idea of saying somebody is a sellout when you guys are so closely aligned, you were just on a fucking panel arguing together. I mean, come on. Are you shitting me? You believe that Tim Black's priorities and the things that Tim Black believed in somehow fundamentally changed within the course of a few months? God damn it! This ink pen thing. Somebody's gonna have to take a drink for this, for dropping the ink pen. Yeah, this is just weird, man. This article, I read this article. This article was very, very long, but I am not saying that, Rob. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I've welcomed Zach on my show, by the way. This was months ago, and he woke up either too late or too early or something like that and couldn't make it. I like his writing. I don't have any issue with his writing. I don't have an issue with Tim Black. I don't have an issue with anybody. I think that's the point. There may be people I may pick on from time to time because I disagree with something they said. But I need to make this very clear. Disagreeing with something that somebody said is not indicative of that person being an enemy. It's just sometimes disagreeing with what they said. It's very possible that somebody can completely agree with all of the aims that you want to accomplish and may have a different set of priorities in order to get you over the hurdle. You can fight and bitch and moan about those things, but at the very least acknowledge that the person is, to some degree, within the same sandbox that you're in. I'm going so far as to call a person a sellout because a person doesn't tell your line is a bit much. Slightly. Jenny Lynn, imagine a fight between HA and Zach. Oh Lord, that would be a doozy. Yeah, Jen. That would be rough. Yeah, popcorn. Yeah, get popcorn. Popcorn. The Pens are tired of being props. They know he has no paper on the desk. Actually, I do have paper on the desk. When I have thoughts, ideas, or just writing. So, I do. You're wrong, sir. You're wrong. They're not just props. I actually use them. Real News Pens take a licking and keep on ticking. Yes, that is Real News Pen, by the way. David Von Kettering. And her monotone delivery didn't work to hypnotize the audience. Donna Brazile always talks that way. She always talks that way. The part of the article that I found amazing that Zach had, that, let's see, where is it? Oh, where is it? By the way, Tulsi Gabbard's response was amazing. I hadn't heard that response. I did not hear that response. Where is it? Here we are. This part. Technically, I'm neutral, but neutrality is something that gets you in trouble because you never notice someone who stands on the white line in the middle of the road. They get run over, and I don't want to get run over, so I'm not neutral. I have to tell people that I'm neutral, but I'm ready for Hillary. I'm ready for Hillary. I love that. I'm ready for Hillary. I love that. That part is damning. That part is damning. I wish that question would have been asked. Hey, we have a document from you saying that, yeah, you may say that you're impartial, but ultimately you're ready for Hillary. I mean, what do you mean for this? And if you notice, during the interview, there was a point where Tim asked her about the lawsuit. And she goes into this interview trick of, who's the lawyer? Who's the lawyer? What does the lawyer matter? What does it matter? Donald Duck is the lawyer. Did the Democrat Party say it or not? Did he say it or not? And yes, he was representing the Democratic Party. And yes, he said it. Why are you asking me about the lawyer? Like this kind of, interview stuff. Look, he did ask her. He did double the ask, meaning he asked the question twice because I think he understood that she was going to try to wiggle out of the question. I don't know the thing that he was looking for. And the problem is that everyone looks for something different in those interviews. And you don't fully get what you want, meaning the audience. Because the audience doesn't like the person you're interviewing. It's not going to get the cathartic release that it wants. But this article wasn't named Zach Howler thinks Tim Black is a bad interviewer. This article was named Tim Black is a sellout. And I'm sorry, those things are fundamentally and drastically different from one another. I can't see Debbie and Sticks having much to talk about. Let's see. Rainbow Boom X. I wonder what would happen if Sticks will hammer a same progressive interview. Oh, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? JT, I think Sixel Hammer would kick Tim Black in an interview. I've only seen Sixel Hammer once or twice. I only see one or two of his videos. The first, I think, 10 minutes of the video, I was like, yeah, he's right. He's dead on. The last X amount is like, ooh, yeah, he's off the rails. So, like, who knows? Maybe. That's the cat with the chest hair, right? He does his videos, his like leather jacket, he has his chest hair showing. It's like, manliness is coming off the page, even though it's thin as a stick of spaghetti. I think I know that cat. Like I said, part of it, I was like, yeah, I agree with him. He's right. The other part was like, oh, whoa, yeah, he's off the rails. He's off the rails. Let's see. Would you ever consider someone a sellout, or do you disagree with ever calling someone that? What would be your definition or qualification for being a sellout? This is kind of my point, right? This is kind of my point. SSS, yeah, this is kind of my point. It's like, doesn't that change according to the person who's looking at it? Like, what's the spectrum that the overwhelming majority of the people say that person sold out? I would say Howard Dean. Howard Dean came into the process. Howard Dean was like I don't want to say Bernie Sanders, but maybe talked in a like kind of a Barack Obama. He was the flaming lefty that was in the contest in that race. Howard Dean got his mind right, and now Howard Dean is a lobbyist. Howard Dean is out there shilling for Hillary like anybody else. Then this idea that if you saw Howard Dean early on in the contest and you see Howard Dean now, it looks like two completely different Howard Deans. If you ask me what does a sellout mean, I would say that. I would say some lefty getting on MSNBC and saying particular things when George Bush or a Republican is in the White House, and when a Democrat gets in the White House, they shut the fuck up about those exact same things. If you're going contrary to your values, or at the very least your stated values, then yeah, I'll call you a sellout. That's my definition of a sellout. And yes, I'm pretty sure there are gray areas, there are gradations and everything else. But if you ask me, like, when do I use it? I don't think I've ever used it, at least in the context of my videos. But if you ask me what it is, I wouldn't use it on issues of the left. I'll tell you that much. Like, I've heard people go after Cedar. I heard people go after TYT. I heard people go after TYT politics. I heard people go after Tom Hartman. All these guys. Many of these guys were shilling for Hillary. But fair enough. We have no complaints on that one. But when you have people who are outside of us and they're talking about the left, they're talking about all of us. Because at the end of the day, those people might have been shilling for Hillary, but those people were shilling for Hillary because you could say they were some degree reformist. This argument about reform versus change or revolt is an argument that goes back since the fucking beginning of well, it goes back to, I would say, the beginning of time. I think it's a natural argument to have. Do you stick with the system you have, or do you change that system? You're always going to have people who are somewhat, okay, I don't have the balls to try to do anything different. I'm okay with this, and I'll be obsequious to this. So yes, those guys will fall in line for various reasons. But take it out the context for a moment of purely just who you're supporting, who you're getting behind, and that type of stuff. And you just talk to those people from the standpoint of, what do you want to take place? You have reformists who ultimately look at things similar to you in regards to what they want to take place, but completely disagree with you in regards to how to get those things to accomplish. I personally think those people were wrong for supporting Clinton in this way. I think they were wrong on a whole sort of things in this regard. But when people call us the left, or when other people are calling us the left, all of us are considered the left. Like, calling these people sellouts seems off to me. I don't know if these people are sellouts, at least by my own definitions. Yeah, by my own definitions. I look at this stuff from the standpoint of, what are these people completely abdicating their values for some other reason? And if that answer is yes, then yeah, you fit my definition of sellout. Does Tim Black fit that definition? Not for me. No, not for a fucking interview. No, I don't think so. I warned people against Stefan over 2 years ago. HA loves sticks. Oh, he does. I look for interesting and sincere on the left and the right. I watch Six, Jamal, Tim, HA, and many others. You have to hear all sides. John Carpenter. Rebel Cage Rattler, what's happening? Even Stevie's here. Go ahead. Holy shit, we have a group. Well, I can just listen to the young turds. That's funny. Angry Cascadian. Jenk is a sellout. I hear a lot of people say that. Redneck Economics. She's doing good. I think she has a real chance of beating Manchin. You're talking about Paula Swearengin? Really? What's the polls? The people here are responding well to her. What are the polls, Redneck Economics? Red, can I bring you on the show to talk about Paula? I have strong doubts that I would be able to get Paula Swearengin on the show. But if you're keeping your pulse on the politics of West Virginia and you're close to Swearengin, I don't see why you're not incapable of having a conversation about what's taking place in West Virginia in this regard. So you're more than welcome to come on the show to talk about West Virginia. Maybe Tim gives a softy interview, but his sellout would be mucho. Oh, that's funny. Robert Puka, right? That's funny. Tomosa Young, I donated to Paula. I like Paula. Kashwari Kate, 117 of us watching tonight. Lots of us with nothing to do on a Friday night. That's funny, Rob. That's funny, Kate. I would totally agree with those examples, Dean and MSNBC, but weren't the Hill Shills exactly the same as Dean? They totally excuse anything she did that they excoriated Bush for. SSS, yes. Yes, agreed. Like we were talking about Maddow, stuff like that. And look, you can even say the Young Turks. You can say anybody who wanted to go for Clinton. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, ultimately, like I said, man, this stuff becomes somewhat subjective. It's subjective. It's, what is your tolerance for dissent? Maybe that's the question. Look, I've had problems, and I've made those known, but the Young Turks, I don't know everyone else's problems with TYT. My problems are somewhat specific. If you say, come on, you can get Paula Jean on, brother, Ernie B, I still think you massively overestimate my reach. I'll send her a thing. I'll see what she says. John Carpenter, yes, I am. John Carpenter asked if I'm going to do a 420 on the recent UFO stuff, and my answer is yes, I am. I may even do it in the night. So, shit, I forgot my point. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yeah, TYT. My issue with TYT is very specific. It's not, I don't know everybody's issue with TYT. I know mine. If you tell me, if you say day after day after day You're supporting Sanders, and you're coming out saying, we're fighting the establishment. You're foaming at the mouth. You're angry at what's taking place in regards to this country. You're punching Democrats in the face. You're punching Republicans in the face. And you're saying, we're taking everybody on. We're a wolf pack. We're doing this. We're muscular men, and we're going to go in and we're going to change the system. Like, if that's your thing, this heroic boarding the ship thing. We're boarding the ship. We're boarding the ship. We're going to take this shit over. But, for right now, we need you to vote for Hillary Clinton. If that's your pitch, you don't see anything wrong with the tone of that pitch. We're taking it on, but. We're taking it on, but. And I've heard people say, well, he never supported Hillary Clinton. But you understand that changing your network, I distinctly remember watching a video of Cenk having this full-bore meltdown, trying to get his audience to vote for Hillary Clinton. Don't tell me he didn't support Hillary Clinton. I don't want to hear this shit about, well, he didn't support her. He just voted for her. He just pushed his audience to vote for her. So come on, be honest. Be honest. Now, for me, that doesn't mean that Cenk is not on the left. Now, you may say he's a sellout. That doesn't necessarily mean he's on the left. The policy stuff that he wants is on the left. I mean, even if you don't like Justice Democrats, ultimately the people, I mean, Paula Swearengin is Justice Democrat. She's on the left. I'm enamored by the trends that take place on the left in regards to this idea of purity. I can dislike somebody for something that they did and still acknowledge that the person is probably on the left and would support some of the same stuff I do. I don't like us cannibalizing ourselves. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm trying to get at. Let's see. You can dip your toe in a revolution. You're either in or out. Economics, fucking A. There's no half-ass revolution. Half-ass political revolution. Yeah, but you know, we don't want to go that far into it. Admit it, mainstream media and TYT love the fact that our president is an orange clown to mostly young. Maybe, yeah. I mean, they may not like it from the standpoint of whatever they want to get accomplished. But if you're talking about something that drums up opposition, and let me be honest, part of my reason for thinking that Trump may be a positive was because Trump was going to be so horrible. I thought he may be so horrible that he may wake people up in a degree that people hadn't been woke up before. Meaning the combination of a Sanders-led thing on income inequality and economics and everything else, with Donald Trump being the epitome of the worst of American excesses. Maybe you have a chance of dragging people out of their complacency. It's only been a year in. Right now I don't see it. But if you're building up groups like Justice Democrats in our revolution, it's nice to have something as a target. So it's like anything else. I would imagine they're positives and negatives. I don't necessarily know if they love the idea that Trump is elected. I mean, Anna had a meltdown on TYT. All of them had somewhat of a meltdown. So I don't know if they love it. But if you're saying there are advantages to it, yeah, there are advantages to it. Agreed. I absolutely agree. Ernie B, anyone know how Erica Garner is doing? So I was going to do a video on that. I just wanted a little bit more information. She's apparently brain dead, but her family doesn't want people to say that she is officially passed. So that's the last news I've heard on it. It's fucking sad. Let's see. Shifting baselines, you're becoming used to the orange color. TYT were also very late to support Bernie. No, they weren't. No. Come on. Zox. But to be fair, I don't watch TYT like that. Like, I got on the bandwagon once Sanders, once he was in the race. Like, when Sanders was in the race. And they had the best coverage of pretty much anybody else because everybody else was trying to block him out. So from my standpoint, when I started seeing it when Sanders was in the race in full bore. So I don't necessarily know what took place before that. So fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, please no UFOs. Debbie and Claudia said they believe the government is going to stage a false flag where aliens are going to invade the earth. Rob Illinois. Yeah, I don't take it that direction. Stephen Greer takes it in that direction. But it wouldn't be in this one, Rob. This would be a separate one. They're a separate one. Who covered him before them? See, right, I don't know who covered Bernie before them. That's what I mean. I started watching when they started covering Sanders. Much love to you, my local friend, First Scorpio 82. Oh, Paul Oliver. I used to think that about Trump's effect too, but modern Democrats are conservative with risks. They'll fall for another Obama nil because they're too afraid to lose backing of real leftists. Lose by backing real leftists. Oh, I see what you mean. They're thinking of the McGovern effect. You think they're scared of that? See, I think it's a little bit more dubious than that. You have a political system that runs on cash. In that political system that runs on cash, these people take huge amounts of cash to get elected. If you need to take a lot of money to get elected, what do you do? Who do you go to? If that's your methodology, if that's your workable point of view of the world, that you need a large amount of cash to get elected, what do you do to get the large amount of cash? And let's say you had a good heart. Let's say you're a good person. You woke up in the morning, you looked in the mirror and says, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm going to take this large amounts of cash and I'm going to do the best that I can do by taking this large amounts of cash, which means I'm going to work in the margins and I'm going to be incremental in the things that I do. I think that makes more sense to me than just these guys are just neo-libs that don't want to use a lefty. I don't think that. Jenny Lynn, Debbie is almost always correct. That's a bit strong. I love Debbie to death. Oh, crossbones. Wise men don't judge. They seek to understand. Way woo way. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you. Guys, I appreciate the super cash. I honestly do. I don't... There's some places that ask for it a little bit more than others. I always feel kind of weird taking it, if that makes sense. It's like, yes, I want to expand my show. Yes, the money actually absolutely helps. It feels weird asking for it. I guess that's what I mean. But I do appreciate it, guys. Thank you. It's always appreciated. I actually grew up in Jamal's town of RVA. Maybe that's why I have so much love for him. Paul Oliver. Aw. Thanks, Paul. Jenny Lamb, remember Bernie's 8-hour speech on the Senate? I had forgot about that. Jen, I had forgot about that. I was pissed at TYT after they started pushing Hillary in the election same year and hated them once they started spouting off about the Russian hacking crap and ignored DNC's lawsuit. Agreed. Agreed. Like I think that's what people mean when they say sellout. It's like you've so moved your network in a direction that is countercurrent to what the rest of your audience is doing. Then your audience looks at this and says, these guys sold out. Then you look at it and say, well, also they have this arm of them called Justice Democrats, so they're part of this kind of political apparatus. How can I expect honest, unbiased news and information if something is working in tandem with a political apparatus? Nomika Kantz, a journalist, at the same token, part of the Democratic thing, meaning a Democratic functionary. It's like, how do you separate those things? I don't know how you separate those things in that way. But that being said, yeah, I agree. The Russia stuff I thought was nonsense. It's like you spent a year talking about the fucking Russian narrative and you have nothing to show for it, even though you've been pushing this conspiracy theory. Grant Jarvis, everyone was talking about Russia without ever taking the time to talk about anything else. Angry Cascadian, TYT didn't care about Seth Rich or the DNC fraud lawsuit. You know, that's how they had run in with HA and Tim Black. The lawsuit thing. One of the people on the panel, John Adirola, made some statement about, like, well, I mean, you donate money, you can't expect them to be used in the way that you think it's going to be used, or essentially that the lawsuit had any legs because it's not fraud. You donate it, and so you know the money. Once the money leaves you or leaves your fingers, then they can do whatever they want, and it wasn't fraud. Something to that effect. This is not a paraphrasing, but it's not exact. Tim Black HA made videos on it pointing out that if I am giving you money and you're lying to me, meaning I'm giving you money under false pretense, by definition, you've defrauded me of that money. I thought I was paying for X and you gave me Y. I bought a prostitute. We get up to the hotel room and she has parts that I wasn't in for. You didn't explain this to me. You didn't explain that this was part of the process of me giving you that cash. I paid you under false pretenses. This is kind of the same thing. If the Democratic Party came out and they said, look, we've chosen her. We're with her. That's who we want. We want her. She has control of the political apparatus, and let's just be honest. We're not going to be fair to you in any particular way. We want her. It is her turn. If they came out right and said that and people still donated to Sanders, then fair enough. Those people got what they wanted. I mean, got what they had in mind. Essentially, you knew we were cheating you and you still donated. No complaints. But let's just be honest. That's not what took place. One grinning idiot after the next would look into a camera, polished and shined up, and they would say this is an impartial process. There is no cheating to be had here. It is an impartial process. Our bylaws tell us that this is an impartial process. And so because our bylaws say that it's an impartial process, I mean, what's the issue? How are you, bitching about this stuff? You guys are just being sore losers. Well, it wasn't an impartial process. It wasn't an impartial process. You guys cheated. You guys massively cheated. You guys completely cheated and used Russia as this kind of pretext or this obfuscation of the fact that you cheated. So come on. It's amazing. So yeah, that's where all that came from. That's where the Jordan Sheridan thing came from. That's what he was talking about in the piece when he said H.A. Tim Black were attacked by Jordan Sheridan. This just kind of weird diatribe that came out of the blue. Yeah, they cheated. He's right. I mean, again, even on that, Zach is right. I want to make this point very clear. I have no issue with Zach at all. I have no issue with Tim at all. I have no issue with anybody at all. When I analyze this stuff, I'm analyzing it purely from the standpoint of what I have in front of me. What I have in front of me is an article where elements of the article is right. I think his political acumen is prescient. I think he's on point. But that, again, is not the hypothesis of the article. That's what I'm getting at. Paul Oliver, Tim is still fine in my book. I won't lie, when he went off on Jamal, that wasn't cool at all, and he lost some people. Yet we have to remember that we're on the same team and can still work together. Agreed. If I am okay with Tim in this case, yeah, it doesn't bother me, man. People flip out sometimes. They lose their shit. I would never be on a show in the sense of doing a segment again. No, fuck that. Hell no. If you can't take tepid criticism, then yeah, that's problematic. But in this case, I don't see what he has. This sellout argument is a little weak to me. Rigging 2016 Democratic presidential primaries against Sanders wasn't just against Bernie Sanders. It was against everyone who voted and nominated Sanders. Cool Blue 71 agreed. Agreed. Hands down agreed. Absolutely agreed. Sanders was just an avatar. I mean, ultimately, all of these representatives are just an avatar of your will, or at the very least, are supposed to be an avatar of your will. It's like the living manifestation of what the public wants. Well, that's not necessarily what takes place. The person, when he was cheated, it was us. It was us. The people were supporting him. It was us. It was us. The left needs to drop the ego. Look at what it's done to Trump. The stakes are too high for infighting. Yeah, and yeah, crossbones. And I wonder if it's one of those things where elections focuses the mind. Like, as elections get closer and closer and closer, these groups kind of start to kind of get into a funnel in regards to what they represent. I don't know. It just may be one of those things of there's nothing to fill up a particular amount of space. And because there's nothing to fill up that space, these guys are just going at each other. Democratic National Convention was a mega shit show. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. That's a fucking understatement. John Krabs, 67. I don't trust Bernie anymore. What's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't get fooled again. George Bush. George Bush. Yeah, are you hiding in the bush? Yeah, George Bush. George, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Jemiah Waters. Yeah, the convention is burned in my mind. It was disgusting. Jemiah Waters, you have no disagreement with me. You have no disagreement with me. They fucked up royally. I don't think they understand how much they fucked up on this. You have a generation of people who are angry and upset at something that's actually real to be angry and upset about. This isn't shit that people made up. This is stuff that people have actually to be angry about. And the party didn't engage it fairly. Tulsi Gabbard engaged it fairly. What are you going to say Tulsi Gabbard engaged it fairly for political reasons? I don't care. If I'm not mistaken, Tulsi Gabbard is not accepting corporate money in her campaign. She's, again, small donations. I could be wrong on this. The last I heard, she was. her donor base is us. If that's true, we're her donor base. So you can understand that there is somewhat of a problem when this woman is on the left, and she's like, whoa, yeah, they cheated. I need to say something about this. Whether she was driven for political reasons of, I need to vote of the left, I'm not going to dick around with these guys thinking that I'm on board with what took place. I am going to completely distance myself from what took place. Looking like a rose in the process of doing it, being gorgeous in the process of doing it in and of itself always works. And I have to admit, it's an effective way of saying, I may be carrying a D on my name, but I am not with them. The party itself should have came out and did something similar. This dicking around with this, we're moving forward stuff. It's like, do you honestly believe that the millions of people who were hurt and disenfranchised by your actions have somehow completely forgot of what took place last year? It's like, come the fuck on. X Factor 541. Brom is everyone. What? You lost my net one. Snort. I believe Hillary rigged the Republican primary to make Trump nominee, but no matter how hard he tried, people still did not want Hillary. Brom, Snort. If the election was held today, they did a poll recently. Hillary Clinton's poll results went down. It's like, shit, how does that happen? Like, you have a situation where you were already in the toilet in regards to polling results, and it went further down. Under normal circumstances, the report noted that when people lose an election, I guess it humanizes the individual, and in humanizing that person, poll results float up a little bit. Not in her case. Donald Trump has the weakest poll numbers of any president, and yet his poll numbers are still higher than hers. If that election was held today, that woman would still lose. The strongest woman in the universe would still lose this election. Amazing. And blackball Nina Turner. Yes, they did. Oh, they treated Nina Turner bad. Cool Blue 71. Shawama Shawant said it best. The Democratic Party establishment may have wanted to defeat Donald Trump, but more than that, they wanted to defeat the agenda of working people. Understand what she's saying. It is more important for Bernie Sanders to lose than it is for Donald Trump to lose. There is a massive difference in those things. If that makes sense. Since the Cold War, the Democratic Party can make this argument that, look, we're the definitive left. There's nothing else to our left. This is just us. We're the only viable path if you want anything to change from the standpoint of the left. Just us. Now, you can imagine that this has amazing advantage when you can say that there is nothing else to our left. There's nothing else to our other side. We're the definitive thing. We're the vehicle in this country. If you want to talk to anything on the left or get anything on the left done, you're going to have to come through us and talk to us. Somewhere along the way, they got wise and said, wait a minute, if we're the definitive left, fuck all. We don't have to support unions. We just don't have to go after unions. But ultimately, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything for any of these groups. Black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. We don't have to do squat. Unions will vote for us because we're not Republicans. Black will vote for us because we're not Republicans. Asians, Hispanics, all these other groups will vote for us because we're not Republicans. Least worse. We're least worse. We can sell that. Least worse. It fits in the mind really well. Is 3 less than 4? And if 3 is less than 4, how are you making the logical argument to not vote for 3? It's the least worst argument. That argument is persistent and atrocious, particularly when you're talking about from the context of a larger time frame. If you're not looking at this from the context of a specific election and you're looking at it for 20, 30 years, the party has moved sharply to the right. They pull that shit because they can get away with that shit. That's the only reason they do it. Least worse. The last thing that they wanted was to have somebody like Sanders being to their left. It exposes the least worst argument when you have somebody who's not simply least worse. That person is simply better. He's simply better. When you're looking at the context of values and you're saying who lines up better with what was considered democratic values, not the shit that they do, but the things that they say. Who lines up better with this? That's Bernie fucking Sanders. And he's been doing this shit for the past 40 years. You can understand that they despise that. It's embarrassing The guy's sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and it embarrasses them. Even in him just drinking a cup of coffee, he's more of what they say they are than what they actually are. The man had to call himself a democratic socialist to make a distinction between who he is versus who they are. But if you look back at the historical record, he's just a Democrat, a classic Democrat. That's it. That's it. He may call himself a socialist. Other socialists will say Bernie Sanders can go fuck himself. He's a classic Democrat. He's just, that party has moved so far to the right that he looks out there. But if you have a conversation with him and you ask people in the country, hey, what do you want? Meaning policy-wise. It'd be Sanders. They want some more in line with him. You've given people two options. And you've consistently given people just two options. And now that you have two options, you have these this spectrum of thought. Meaning keeping the lines between these two options. What if the conversation and the debate needs to go beyond those boundaries? What if those boundaries have been gamed and contrived in order to keep certain people in power and keep certain profits in the people's hands and other people not so much? I mean, what, 95% of the wealth went to the top percent under the Democratic president? I mean, come on. Something seems wrong with this. Something seems wrong with this process. Yeah, they would have preferred to lose rather than for Bernie Sanders to win. Bernie Sanders winning completely redefines what it means to be a Democrat in this country. And the last thing that they want is to lose their status in that party in that way. They would prefer Trump over Sanders. That's my point. That's a long-winded point, but that's my point. He exposes their failures just by being there. So, that's long-winded. Fair enough. But, oh, geez, this is almost going 2 hours. Hillary only had $1.2 billion to blow. That's all she had. That's all she had to most. Ranked choice voting can break the two-party stranglehold. Underdog 47 agreed. Agreed. Now you just need a mass of people to push it. Because they would never do that under their own steam. That's going to be something that has to be forced on the system. Power is nothing without a demand and power to back it up. Thank you, Zabox. You essentially made my point. Had skill fail. The whole system is rigged from the outside in. It's a big club and you ain't in it, George Carlin. Problem with left kumbaya argument is neo-libs use it to push you to get in line behind our shitty leadership because we claim to be the left. That is the problem with the kumbaya left argument. I don't mean kumbaya with them because I don't consider them to be the left. I'm talking about us. Like, I know Zach will make some distinction between him, Tim Black, HA, and some of these other guys who are on the left, these lefty commentators. I consider all of this the left. I don't consider Democrats the left. I consider them essentially a right-wing party. I mean, if you're talking about Britain, Democrats will be Labour. I mean, not Labour, they would be the Conservative party. I mean, they're far right-wing. It's hard to get across that these guys are to the right. It's just because there's nothing else on the left that's pressing in this way that they seem to be on the left. They're just moderate Republicans. Republicans have just gone off the fucking political spectrum. Tomosa Young, I welcome neo-lib hate. Fuck them all. You right on, Tomosa Young. Thomas Almy, one love, Jamal. Thank you, Thomas. Last name is Thomas, too. Jamelia Waters, considering his record, I'm surprised Democrats allowed him as a challenger. He was meant to be another Joe candidate. Shows their lack of foresight. Yes, it does. Not to mention, he's having this conversation squarely about class, and that is the last conversation they want to have. Mr. X, how do you feel about Shama Shawan? I like Shama Shawan. I've met her once. I thought she was awesome. She's full on socialist, and she owns it. Jimmy Dore always said, in a fight, you pay off one guy to lose, not to win. Hillary and Democrats lost $1.2 billion. Think about it. I don't think she wanted to lose, SS. I don't think she wanted to lose at all. I feel you, but I don't think she wanted to lose. Neoliberals lecture from ivory towers. Warpratt, Tulsi needs to lead whatever is left of the Democrats after they finish imploding. That's funny. Hillary probably hit another billion by making those costs hidden on other candidates. Snork. Zox Alex, I love Shama Shawan. She's amazing. Yes, she is. I like her too. Alright guys, I am going to end this. I am fatiguing. It's 1 o'clock. And I just remembered that Black Mirror is active right now on Netflix. So if you've never seen Black Mirror, that show is fucking awesome, and they've released their new season. So I am going to go binge watch Black Mirror for the rest of the night. We're going into a new year. I think I'm probably going to do a New Year's show. But if I don't see you guys before the new year, you guys have an awesome new year. Actually, you probably will see me before New Year because I have an interview tomorrow at 4 p.m. So I would do, I guess, a New Year show, maybe, something to that effect. Yeah, Black Mirror. Yeah, Julian, it's fucking awesome. That show is amazing. That show is fucking awesome. If you're talking about doing a review, that would be an amazing review of 420. Back at you, Cool Blue. Happy New Year's to you too. Alright guys, this should be an interesting new year. I'll say it that way. And Rob, yeah, the UFO thing is going to come up at some point. So get yourself ready. And mind you, Rob, the UFO thing that's coming up is purely from our media. It's not, it's not like there's some random website somewhere to pull it out. I don't think you... Look, I'm going to say this. This is the part here. I am blown away. And I know I always say it was on the end it didn't end up fucking around for longer. I am blown away by the reaction of the public to that information. Like, understand what I mean. I've been studying the UFO. I look into all sorts of stuff. I like this kind of I like delving into odd topics because I want to understand it. I want it not just to be told. I want to experience. And so that takes me to weird places, engaging in strange things to try to understand a little bit more about the world and reality to which we exist. Let me say it that way. The UFO thing was something that I had looked into before and found it fascinating. But it's one of those things that's like, oh, this is interesting. But there was nowhere else to go with that being interesting. Like, you can look into it, you can look at the researchers, and these guys have been doing research for the past 50, 60, 70 years. And you realize, you're like, well, the government have been doing research on this stuff for like 50, 60, 70 years. And the thing has always been, we're not telling about this. This isn't in covers. Nobody mentions it. The media never talks about it. And it seems to be the most normal thing in the world to ask yourself, we're on a planet hurling through the goddamn cosmos. And why do you believe that we're the only thing in existence? That seems like more of a religious argument to me. It really, life grows everywhere. You have life in volcanic pits. But you're telling me that this is all there is. And you're using a context purely of humanity, the only context that you know, to make a determination of what's out there. The only thing that you can find out there with that particular context is things that look and act and behave something like us. It's like, come on, be honest. You have no context outside of anything other than yourself. So, these arguments, these proclamations and everything else. What I've noticed, however, is the slow disclosure. I don't know if people noticed this, but beforehand, none of this stuff ever came up. Then you would have information saying, we found water on Mars. We found water on Mars. Scientists have always said that if there was life, there's going to be water. Oh, holy shit, there's water. Hey, we found water in this place too. Holy shit, there's water in this place. We found other planets that look like Earth. Holy shit, we found other planets that look like Earth. And then it's, hey, we found something that came from some other galaxy, and look at it. It has a weird shape to it. I mean, this doesn't look like anything. This doesn't look natural. This is what they're debating on the news after having this kind of embargo going for the past 40, 50 years. So I'm looking at this, curious about this, because it does seem like, it seems like they're introducing these things one after the next in this kind of slow fashion. Okay, fair enough. Whatever. It is what it is. I mean, I think it's a little weird to believe that there's nothing else outside of yourself. So, fair enough. But this is the media thing. This is their spectrum. And then a bombshell report comes out in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Politico that there's a black budget project in the United States government that's studying alien crafts. Now, Britain and France have already opened his books. Some of the other countries have already opened their books on this stuff, meaning this is what we have. These are the things that were chased. These are the things that people said, and it may not be everything, but they opened it up, making this point of, yes, we were looking into this. The United States, or whoever's this faction of whoever's interested in this within the government of sorts, who released this information, also released tapes. The story was too fantastic itself, so they wanted to show proof and evidence to the fact that, yes, we're doing this, and this is some of the stuff that we've been seeing. Politico, New York Times, and Washington Post. That is as establishment as you can get, meaning mainstream narrative as you can get, is having a conversation about UFOs and that the United States government has been looking at these things. And when they put this guy on television who was looking at this, and she asked him flat out, do you believe that we're being visited? His answer was yes. Now, this is not, again, some guy who said, I heard from Bob, who heard from Ted, who heard from John when Susie was on her deathbed. She whispered in my ear that something... No. Washington Post, New York Times, Politico, MSNBC is having a conversation with the person who was in charge of the program. And he's making this point that, look, you guys are just looking at 2 tapes. There's more. There's more. My determination wasn't on 2 tapes. There was more. And in not saying there's more, there's a lot more. Some of the people who are involved in this, who are kind of behind the scenes on this, who was, you know, part of this process, had already said, look, they're going to release certain information, and in 2018 they're going to end up releasing more information. And the information that they released on this, we already knew they were going to release. I'm fascinated by this because I watched the story with a certain amount of holding your breath. Like, oh, that guy just admitted. He just disclosed. That's disclosure. Understand the gravity of this. Like, it's hard for me to... I am more blown away at the non-reaction of the public than anything else. This guy, this aspect of the United States government is coming out of the Pentagon. I don't think things that come out of the Pentagon are random in this kind of way, but whatever. Somebody wanted this out. He comes out, yes, we've been studying this. Some of this is to some degree absurd, because certainly the United States government has been studying this for God knows how long. I don't understand why people just accept these denials, but whatever. He comes out, yes, we've been studying this. Yes, I believe we've been visited. Yes, we have evidence where we're looking at these craft and we're looking at these ships and these things are doing miraculous things that human beings can't do. No, our investigation did not go into this idea of what's in those crafts. But if you ask me if we're being visited, my answer to this is yes. Somebody in the United States government just disclosed that there are people, there are other things visiting this planet. Whether you want to say, well, we don't know what's in those crafts, those could be robots. Okay, fuck did those robots come from? Like in any case you're talking about, any case that you're making, there's something there that these guys are studying where you're saying, yes, there is something there. These things are intelligent control. There's something there. These things have been with us for God knows how long. But the very least from our knowledge, going back to when we dropped the nuclear bomb, at least during the war, the Foo Fighters. But before that, I mean, you have other things in history that have images of this stuff. I'm just making this point. This seems to be a bombshell story. And it's a bombshell story that people heard and just like, huh, that's interesting. And they sip their fucking coffee. The guy just told you that aliens are visiting the planet. And people's reaction was, that's interesting. And they went about their way. There are some people who are in this camp that full well believe that this is going to be a false flag attack where the United States government has certain technologies and it's going to use those technologies that the public is unaware of to stage some kind of alien assault. I am personally not on that bandwagon. Do I think that they're going to use the stuff in political ends in the way that they always use things in political ends? Yes. Part of my reason for not wanting disclosure, and I know that sounds insane, but no, I didn't necessarily want it. I watched that interview with a certain amount of terror, with a certain amount of joy, because I understand that we're not in a political climate where we act rationally, and the news and the information that comes out, oftentimes that stuff is just completely disbelieved from jump. Any random thing that takes place, you have elements that says false flag, 100 people get shot, false flag, false flag. Everything is a false flag. Nothing is true. Everything is a false flag. Everything is conjured. Everything is, you know. How in that climate, when the edifices and the things that you look at to give you some level of information, some level of truth, is non-existent? How? How do you process information in this way? Like, so the State Department. So I can firmly believe that the military apparatus looks at this and says, this is a threat. We need $1 trillion to do something about it. That doesn't shock me in the least. But the problem is that the fact that it doesn't shock me in the least is somewhat terrifying. You're talking about something that may be potentially visiting this planet, and you have the military who clearly only cares about the military. The larger issues don't really come into factor. You have a country and a world that is incapable of taking care of itself. and if we're being honest, is not necessarily capable of being honest with in regards to how it regards other human beings and even the information that it passes out to those human beings. And in this context, in this broken, terrifying context of human civilization, you're adding fucking aliens. I thought that disclosure was terrifying. Has nothing to do with them. If anything lands, if a spaceship landed outside of my house, I would run over there and hug them and say, "Welcome, space brother." It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with us and our reaction to that stuff. And not having a reaction is slightly weird to me. Yeah. I found the news to be awesome and terrifying at the same time. And part of the reason is, yeah, if those guys are out there saying that the government is trying to do a false flag attack, yes, this is part of the terrifying part. Yeah, this is part of terrifying. Look, they didn't, they're not taking this out of whole cloth, by the way. Part of, this is, what's that Nazi that was brought over in Operation Paperclip? Where the CIA brought over, like, Nazis in order to work in the space program. Oh, what is his name? Heisenberg. Von Braun. Heisenberg, Von Braun. The one who, the rockets program. If I'm not mistaken, he said that, or that statement is attributed to him, saying that, that initially there's going to be terrorist attacks and people are going to use terrorist false flags, and eventually it's going to get to the point of trying to unite the world under one military rule, using this idea of a false flag attack by aliens. Ronald Reagan coming out saying that if this world was attacked by aliens, how all of our problems would disappear and we would unite. And Ronald Reagan was heavy into this idea of a Star Wars program. So I understand where they're getting it from. I don't think they're making it out of whole cloth. And if we're being honest with ourselves, do we believe that all of the technology that we see from the United States military is available for the public's viewing? I think that answer, of course, is no. Of course, they're not going to show you everything that they have. Is it possible that they have aircraft that does some amazing fucking things? The answer, of course, is yes. It is possible. Is it beyond the realm of possibility that using those things, they create some kind of idea of some threat from outside of ourselves? The honest answer is they don't need to use those things to create a threat outside of ourselves. They only have to tell you it's a threat outside of ourselves. Did Russia hack the elections? Did Russia hack the elections? So yeah. Yeah. I that's my spiel. And I shouldn't have put this all in one video. But why does blurry infrared video prove that they're aliens? Well, it's not the blurry video, dude. It's, you understand that guy was doing investigations and studies. And the video that you're seeing is one fucking video. There's more. Like, there's more that the guy's looking at. You honestly believe, be honest. I mean, I understand that this may be some level of confirmation bias on your part. You may use this confirmation bias on my part. On my part, however, I have the guy who ran the program coming out saying, when flat out asked, and he's making this point that it is a scientific determination that I'm giving you that is based on more than just those two videos. That's his point. That's his point. Like, it's like, how do you completely discount the fact that the guy is saying, I've been investigating this? And you're like, well, I mean, it's just a blurry video. People are so gullible. Yeah, they're so gullible to completely discount shit based upon their own point of view of the world. It's like, come on. So War of the Worlds 2.0. Yeah, that's one of those things that leads me to scene. I'm skeptical about that argument until that takes place, if that makes sense. I don't believe there's any threat from outside of this planet in this way, at least not the way that's being sold. And I understand, and this is kind of my point in saying it's somewhat terrifying for this news to come out now, where the public is completely disbelieving anything that comes out from the standpoint of government, and completely disbelieving even from the standpoint of media. And a lot of them take that stuff as being just bunk. It hasn't even come out yet. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's soft disclosure because you can say it's an element of the military coming out with that information. But it's not even, it's not groundbreaking, and it's not. I just don't understand people's, the government comes out saying we're studying XYZ, and that these guys are reporting all of this weird stuff, and the public looks at it and says, oh, well, that's interesting. Move on. Or take the other guy's approach. Oh, it's just blurry images. It's just blurry images. It's like, this guy is just looking at a blurry image. This guy is coming out saying this with a blurry image. The government spent millions of dollars on this blurry image. Come on. Come on. Be honest. Hillary had to explain to her donors how she lost and gave them $2 billion as account for. Alright guys, yeah. I am about to head out. It's past my bedtime too, Mr. X. So I'm going to call it a day. Rob, you can just skip my alien videos if you don't like my alien videos. But keep in mind, this channel is just me. I don't put on any airs on this stuff. If it's stuff, if it's something I'm interested in, I show it on my channel. If people don't particularly like that thing, they can either leave or just not watch that particular video. I am okay with either. I look at it as I build my audience with each video I put out. My audience would at some point just be like, all right, I think he's loony on this particular point. Even though every fucking thing I'm saying is in MSNBC, it's like in the mainstream news at this point. Or I don't want to hear this point, so I'm going to move on to the other videos. That's perfectly okay. I understand. I understand. Alright guys, I am going to end this. Look guys, thanks for coming up. Thanks for coming up. And if I don't see any of you or talk to any of you before the next year, you guys have a happy fucking new year. I mean, good night guys. Oh yeah, and I always have to say it. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through either Patreon or at this point, I do a lot of these super chats. All of it is appreciated. Thanks guys.